Green, joined by Councilor Rudd and Councilor Paniagua. So the point of this meeting is an update on construction on the Creekwalk, particularly because we've had some questions from members of the community, and just it's a nice opportunity for us to kind of get an update on how everything's going and what the next steps are. So I'll turn it over to engineering.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. This is Russ Hauk from engineering, and yes, this next phase of the Creekwalk Phase 2, is scheduled to be open July 1st, and there will be an opening event that the mayor's office is kind of handling at this point on next Wednesday, correct, Ruthnie? Next Wednesday at Kirk Park.
I believe we just got confirmation that we can do next Wednesday. So we just got confirmation about 2 hours ago. We're working with CMS to make preparations.
Okay. I'd like to share a screen if I can, just to show a map of the. We can go from there. Okay. So it might just take a couple seconds here. Did that come up okay? Can you guys see the map?
Yep.
Okay. So the yellow line is phase 2 of the Creekwalk. It's about 2.2 mile extension. Kind of the green line up in downtown is the first phase, going into Armory Square. We're going to be connecting at Walton Street, going under the railroad underpass, using West Street. That's kind of an urban trail area. There's a standalone bike path through there, as well as new sidewalks on that whole service road. There's a connection to the crosswalk across West Street, the existing crosswalk there, so there's a connection kind of to that near west side. Once we hit West Onondaga, we have an upgraded crossing there. We actually kind of get into much more of the greener area of the trail, going through what was a vacant lot at Onondaga, and then following the creek through Tallman, new green space at Oxford Street, where the old Oxford Inn was. That's now more than an acre of green space with a small parking area. Cross over at the Midland Avenue Bridge, use the MLK green area is what I'm going to call it. It's along MLK West. There's a new trail in there.
Excuse me, Russell. Before you move on, when you talk about that little trail right there, were you the guys that put that stop sign right there?
There's a new stop sign at the crossing. That's a new, because the trail is crossing the road there. There used to be a stop just at Blaine, and now there'll be a stop on Midland as well.
It's a three-way, and I'm just going to ask for future reference that when you're doing that, could you at least let the district councilors know these stop signs are going in and don't just pop up?
Okay. Had been working with D.P.W on that, but yep, we can.
Because I travel, and I'm gonna tell you, you know your roads, and when you see a stop sign that you blow through that you knew wasn't there, I think people need to be made aware of that.
Yeah, we put one advanced sign up on Midland on this side, but yeah, it's new, and it seems like most people have figured that out now, and but I agree with you. It does need.
Councilor Hudson, this is Ruthnie. The communications team has been trying to work this past few months with D.P.W and engineering to make sure that we do some public engagement or some public communication around when we make those kind of changes. So we will keep working at it. It is a challenge, but it's high on our radar that we should let people know.
It's something we could even announce if we do some sort of, again, public announcement as part of this that could get out there as well. That's the only traffic change, I believe, on the route, actually. The only change to any stop signs or signals. So I'm going,
Okay, go ahead.
Going south along the route, we're across South Avenue into kind of the Rich Street, Hudson Street green area now. Previously, some of that had been county owned. It's all city owned now. Onondaga Earth Corps planted a number of trees in there. They've been involved in the project, again, planting 75 trees as a partner. Cross over the bridge using Rich Street. We now have a divided area in here to keep traffic away from the bike and walking lane and into Lower Onondaga Park. This road is actually closed now to traffic, this little section. The rest of the park is open. Following along, kind of along Lower Onondaga Park Drive, Sentinel Drive, we actually, now the trail goes under South Avenue rather than having to cross it up on top. We actually have a nice new platform under South Avenue, very nice area. And then into, I'll call it Kirk Park, west side. Probably the nicest part of the trail, following the creek there. A new creekside platform right near the end. We have some pictures of that coming up. And a new parking lot right at the end to hold about 16 cars. That's where the trail ends right now. The city still has some bike lanes on the other side of Colvin Street that hook into this. I was going to go through some photos. If any questions, actually anyone wanted to bring up anything at this point? I'm just going to go through some photos.
I have some, but I can wait till your presentation is done if you want.
Okay. This is downtown. We are on Walton Street. The existing Creekwalk is back here on the other side of the creek. We're using the sidewalk as a connection. We had to put in all new sidewalk in here. There was no sidewalk previously. And this is heading over towards West Street. Going under the railroad underpass. This is not part of the project. The city does need to do a little cleaning up in this area, just to spruce it up, make it look a little better. Again, it's not part of this project. We come into the railroad bridge, and this separates the bike lane and the sidewalk from traffic. We have a new concrete barrier for safety here, new markings as well. The bikes can come down here and get off at a drop curb and come into downtown this way. West Street was upgraded. There was a bike lane there before. We put in all new sidewalks along the route. There is new red stampcrete that looks like the fake brick along the side here. We have raised curbs now, which were just pylons before. This separates the bike lane from the traffic very well. There'll also be some bollards, kind of steel bollards that are highly visible bollards where there are road crossings to make sure cars do not come down the bike lane.
So I will interrupt there. Is that, I've done this path like 5 times now, even though it's not open. And right there, just beyond the firehouse, there's a body shop or a car place. And the owner parks his cars in the bike lane and on the sidewalk, like basically all the time. Like 4 out of 5 times there's been cars in the middle of the bike lane. And I actually tried to talk to him one time, and he basically said, well, it's my property. I can do whatever I want, just like I can do whatever I want with the sidewalk. So I'm not sure if you're putting the ballards there and that prevents that one property in particular, but there's something there that is like problematic.
Yeah, there are some, I know there's, I think, 2 auto shops in here, and sometimes you do see the cars parked across the lane. This will help. Yeah.
That's not legal, right? Like it's illegal to park in the bike lane.
Yeah, it's not legal, and that's the city property and city road anyway.
Is there any way to communicate? Maybe it's Rutheny. Like, is there some way to do outreach to help get buy-in? I think the bike path could be a good thing for him, but I don't think he currently thinks it's a good thing.
So to be clear, make sure I understand. You're saying this bike path that we're looking at, we're going to get resistance from the property owner?
Well, yeah, there's one there's one car place that they park the cars in the bike lane every night for sure. I'm not sure about during the day. And he basically says that it's his property, so he could do whatever he wants. But it's not. It's like the city right of way, and it's a state. It's like whatever category of trail this is. It's that.
I mean, Counselor, the cars are illegally parked. We should enforce, ticket the cars that are illegally parked.
Okay, well, I think we, as a city, somebody has to flag for, I don't know if police or who, but somebody should pay attention.
You can coordinate some engagement and reach out to him. If you want to send me that address intersection, you or Russ,
Sure.
our team will take care of it.
All right. I think a non-enforcement approach would probably be best to start, because I don't think he needs to get a whole bunch of tickets. I just think he needs to understand that he would get a whole bunch of tickets.
Counselor, this is Neil Burke. The owner is aware. The property owner is aware. The owner of the garage is aware that they're not supposed to be doing this. I know Russ has worked with them pretty closely. I think your original question was, can there be bollards at significant driveway entrances like that one, similar to how they are at the intersections, which would physically prevent you from pulling in a car, which means you don't have to call SPD to have them come out and give them a ticket. So I think that's a question we can pose back to Russ. And if it's not included in the final design, can it be an additional item that we include?
Yeah, I think two bollards there at each end of the property might be very valuable.
Yeah, we do have at least one there on one side of the property and one further up at the intersection. I think the issue is people are coming in actually just parking perpendicular to the trail, not even along the trail, but just waiting to get into the garage. That happens, or parked across the sidewalk. I do see that in the day, and yet we've talked. Yeah, I'm not sure what the next step is at this point. Yeah. Okay. So this trail, yeah, goes up to Onondaga Street. Actually goes on, the bike trail goes on to a widened sidewalk, which crosses Onondaga. There's still another picture of the bike trail. Again, we have raised islands here to separate the service road from the bike trail. Stamp Creek going in this area, spruce it up a bit. So once we cross Onondaga Street, it becomes much more green, and this is looking north to Temple Street at the Temple Street intersection. We have a privacy fence on the private property side for about, say, roughly half a mile from Temple Street to Oxford, and then the creek side is fenced with security fence all along the Creekwalk. We have trail markers going in as well at every 1/10 of a mile. There are emergency zones on here. We have 6 emergency call boxes going in, which will be functional soon. There are, as you can see, 100 new lights, LED lights that went in along the trail, kind of a very modern style. And camera coverage on some pretty large portions of the trail, which are more remote or hidden.
Who monitors the cameras?
That goes through the Syracuse Police Department. Yeah, again, that's not functional yet. That should be functional within probably 2 weeks, would be my guess. Again, looking, that's in Taylor Street, looking towards Taylor from Tallman. Nice area here. Had big cleanup in this area of debris. Turned into a very nice area. A little wall on this side, which you'll see coming up to Tallman Street as well. Same Taylor Street area looking south. And this is the Tallman Wall on both sides of the bridge. A stone block wall was put in. Nice aesthetics. Grass is growing very well there as well, and we're keeping the privacy fence on the private side. Looking that way, looking Tallman north, following the creek towards Taylor Street. I think it turned out to be a very nice area here. And then kind of looking south now, heading south from Tallman towards Oxford Green. county treatment plant on the other side, and there's the Midland Avenue Bridge. Oxford Street, this is where the old Oxford Inn and another building was, which were taken out. This is now all green space with a small parking area in the middle and 20 trees planted by the Onondaga Earth Corps here. Benches as well, 4 or 5 benches. Catholic Charities also donated a bench out by the road at the bus stop. This is where, after crossing the Midland Bridge, we're into the MLK green space area. The new trail is striped here. We got some nice views of the Syracuse Stadium. Follows the creek quite nicely here. We did a good deal of clearing along the creek, so there are some nice views of the creek here as well. Then past Rich Street, this is the divider at Lower Onondaga Park. This is pedestrian and bikes here now, and one lane drive on the other side, which enters into Lower Onondaga Park with the playground and the fountain in the background. I think that's a self-operated fountain. This is now just a bike lane and pedestrian lane at this point. There are bollards and gates. There were bollards here already, and we've got gates on the other side as well. We have 6 or 7 rest areas that went in along the trail. A bench, bike rack, and shrubs around it. These are some nice sitting areas, and each of them has a nice view of the area out into the parks or along the creek trail. And this is the trail going under South Avenue, so now we don't have to cross South Avenue, which is a fairly busy street. It's quite a nice little walk through here, very close to the creek. Strong fence for safety. Coming out on the other side, this would be kind of Kirk Park West, probably the nicest section of the trail. Just a fence on the creek side, no fence on the other side. The Parks Department has done a lot of clearing in this area, much more open now. And then looking south towards the Travelers Rest building, very nice area. This was totally overgrown before with no access previously. We can now get alongside of it. Looking further south towards the Kirk Park pedestrian bridge, which will be upgraded in the near future. Not part of this project, that's a different project. Pedestrian bridge connection, final quarter mile of the trail to Hunt Avenue. And then a creekside platform right near Hunt Avenue that has benches. This could be a fishing area. It's really just a rest and relaxation area. And finally, the parking lot here on the end, which will hold, I believe, 16 cars. And this area does connect to an existing bike lane heading south here. So that's the trail in a nutshell.
So, Councilor Green, can I go with my couple?
Yep.
So the biggest one, I think it's amazing. Like, I think the greenery, the urbanness, the industrialness, the park, everything is like, it's a great mix and it's a great trail. But I did have a couple places like safety concern, thoughts, issues. The number one that I think is most dangerous is South Ave at MLK, where the trail crosses at grade with the street, because you get almost lulled to like into a state of like false security with the peacefulness of the trail that you don't realize you're about to cross a major thoroughfare. Like the way that they put up huge stop signs in suburban areas where you have 2 major roadways. I think the bike trail needs like a huge like bike stop sign both ways, because you're just not aware that you're about to cross like a very busy street.
Yeah, we've got the standard trail stop signs there. Those are small. That's correct.
They're small. There you don't get a lot of advance notice. There's like a bend. Like there needs to be something kind of jarring, or else we're definitely gonna have somebody get killed there. In my
Okay.
opinion.
I know that's even a difficult area to pull a car out of. Just I think there's a good amount of brush around that bridge, which could be cleared back. I think that would help as well a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my number one issue. I think that's by far the most dangerous. And then from there, the area that President Hudson was talking about, the changed traffic pattern near, I think where Midland goes over the creek, like Midland and
Midland and Bellevue.
Bellevue, because it basically, the way the trail switches sides of the street or something, it requires you to like cross the road in kind of a weird way, but then it's not a straight intersection, like a four-way intersection, so it's confusing. So like you're kind of looking to cross and the cars are like going, it's very awkward. That's like the second most dangerous part. But I'm not sure how to fix that part.
Right. Yeah. There's a stop on both sides there, and I mean, had designers look at this. I think it kind of requires a stop sign there.
Is it a four-way stop? That's the part I don't understand. How does it?
It's a three-way.
It's
three-way.
So who doesn't stop? There's not a fourth way. It's only.
Yeah, Blaine doesn't cross through. Blaine just comes in at one point. It doesn't actually cross Midland. I know, with additional signage, I mean, do we need...
Because Midland doesn't have, the people on Midland don't have a stop, do they?
Yes, that's where the stop went up.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's because that's kind of new too, because it seems like the cars aren't expecting to stop either, because you basically have to cross Midland. So if the car's on Midland,
and that was my point, Tim. When you're coming from the north going south, that one I kind of okay, but when you're coming south headed north, that's an awkward stop sign right there. It's very awkward.
Well, I think it's something we can look at. I think it's also important to have traffic slowed there for the crossing, correct? Yeah.
Right. I mean, traffic has to slow, but there needs to be some sense of like, when does the bike go versus when does the car go versus is it like bikes are traffic, and if they're there first, they go because it's everybody's stopping, but something about the way it lines up or the way the creek line like indicates where you cross. Maybe there's a way to make it more of a direct, like you cross at this point. There's something about it that's.
And then the stop sign is real little. So.
Okay.
Because I think that like there's sort of a similar thing at the small cross streets where the streets cross the creek on like more quiet streets, and it seems that I would assume the stop signs that are there for the cars have been added also, even though you said there weren't other additions, but that's enough that like it slows the cars down at least, so that as a biker you can tell when, and it's not like South Ave where they're going 40 miles an hour, so it's like more manageable. But those two, I would personally put stop signs on those quiet streets for like every point where the trail crosses those streets. I'm not sure. I think most of them have stop signs for the cars, but I'm not sure all of those quiet streets do.
Right. They're very minor. They're mid block things. Well, I think it's something that Neil and engineering can talk about. I mean, that's adding a lot more stuff.
Do you have a picture of it, Russell? Do you have a picture of that intersection?
Oh, I would have to find it. Yeah, it would take me a while. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I guess the question, Counselor Rudd, is, do we want to then add more stop signs other places that aren't stops right now? That's the question as well.
Right. I personally think those quiet streets would be well served with additional stops, but like I would rather have a stop sign as a car, and then know that there's a there's a trail of some kind that's crossing, rather than to like be surprised by a bicyclist one day when I'm in the middle of the block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are the trail crossing signs, but not stop signs there, right? Okay, well, maybe it's something, Neil, I think, planning and engineering could look at and see if there are some.
I think they all have painted crosswalks on those things. Is that true?
Yes, they're all, it's all painted crosswalks. It's all signed as, according to state regulations.
Neil, while you're on this call, now that this is open, does it cause us to reconsider any of the locations for bike share?
Yeah, so first to get back to what Rudd and Russ are talking about, Tim and Russ, yeah, we can look at those, we'll evaluate things and give it a go here. In terms of bike share, absolutely. This, I think you heard earlier, is a game changer really for mobility on the south side. Some of those neighborhoods. It's a place where we want to see bikes, and we've already been in discussions. We were in discussions when we signed the contract with Gotcha about what does phase 2 look like, because we knew Creekwalk was being extended. So we're looking at it. They're excited. We're excited. Yeah, as we move forward, this is a prime location for more bike share.
Okay. And then the other question I have in terms of winter maintenance, now that it's a lot longer, what's our plan for clearing snow and handling it in winter?
Yeah,
So, Russ, I can take that one if you want, at least to start.
That'd be great.
So we had in the budget Corey Dunham, Chief Operating Officer. We had a position in the budget for this year for a Creekwalk maintenance supervisor, because we really need somebody to own the Creekwalk, to be proactively traveling it on a regular basis, to notify when there are issues. Unfortunately, that was one of the first positions to get cut as we face this financial crisis in the light of the pandemic. So the way that it currently works is between D.P.W, mostly D.P.W and Parks, they work together to clear the path. So I believe it's Info Services will be working to clear the path. But obviously, we really need somebody dedicated to owning the entire Creekwalk. But, D.P.W and Building Trades does what it does to empty the trash cans. The Parks Department takes care of a lot of the vegetation, but third time's the charm. I'm hoping in the next budget year, we'll be able to get a dedicated staff person and supervisor to oversee the whole thing.
So, but who does the snow removal though? Is it?
So I believe it's D.P.W. Yeah.
It's us. This is Commissioner Robinson, D.P.W. Yeah, it's us. Andy Jakubowski is going to take the lead on clearing snow and taking care of the litter and the trash. So it will be us until we can, in the interim, until we can get that person hired in the next year's budget.
Right. I think Corey, even we had the idea in the city of using higher ground more often once they're available again for some trash cleanup.
Jesus.
Yes, I believe they were actually there last week doing some trash cleanup on the Creekwalk. But yeah, we'd love to utilize their services to kind of help us keep the area clean until we can get more dedicated resources to it.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Green, can I ask another question? Then I'm done.
Go ahead, President.
Okay, this is a question I want to ask, because right there going across that Creekwalk, isn't that little trail the county?
Where are we talking about?
Midland, when you crossed over, wasn't that where the treatment plant is under that?
Yeah, this was county land. It's city property now.
So now we have responsibility for what the county put out there. But okay, another question then, I asked this before, did we put lighting on that trail, or is it still dark?
Yes, there's lighting all along the trail. No new lighting on West Street, but from Onondaga all the way to the end.
No, I'm not talking about all the way, I'm talking about right there on that particular crossing on Midland. I know that little trail that the county gave us now, it didn't have any lights on it.
Yes, we install lighting as part of this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Councilor Green is Joel. Can I ask some question?
Go ahead, Counselor.
So my first question kind of been touched by Commissioner Robinson. Was wondering because considering that the trail is going to be used, some people may use it as an opportunity to use it as a dumping ground, maybe throw things in there. You know, what is the frequency of making sure that those are checked? And you Commissioner Robinson, how where are the trash can placed? Is it at every rest area, or where are they? And how often do the trash get picked up?
The location of the trash cans, I would have to defer that to Russ. I know they're spread out throughout the trail. And as far as dumping, I know the cameras that are getting installed to help a lot. And Andy Jakubowski, like I said, he's going to be the overseer of the Creekwalk for now and take daily rides to make sure that there's no illegal dumping, and if it is, we'll have to deal with it as such.
Yep. Yeah. We have 10 new trash receptacles along the trail, in addition to whatever was there before at the parks. I think it will pick up litter, and it is something that has to be picked up. In the past, I would almost say parts of this were a dumping ground, and I actually think that having more open areas now is going to reduce the big scale dumping, the tires and the mattresses, that sort of thing. But litter will still be an issue.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And it is the pickup is done just as every week, just like any other pickup, right? The trash pickup, that is.
It'll probably be twice a week, Counselor, depending on what he sees or what he finds when he's riding that trail.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The second question kind of got touched as well. You said there are cameras going up there, because mine is more of a security question. Are they going? How many of them are going up there?
We have 20 locations. It's not 100% coverage, but again, it's more the remote areas, not as the parks so much, but areas that are new trail have cameras, and they're hooked into the existing police camera system.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Majuk, this is Mary Robinson, city engineer. There's also going to be 6 call stations, I believe, right, Russ?
Right. Emergency call boxes, kind of like you see at SU campus. They'll be there, available in the newer and more remote areas.
Well, that's great. That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Counselors, I know Driscoll, Allen, Hogan, any of you guys have any questions?
I just got on the call, so I'm not going to ask any questions because you guys probably already talked about it. But if I have any, I'll email.
I'm fine, thank you, Councilor Green.
I just was wondering if is this part of a presentation that could be emailed to us? Counselor, I'm sorry, I was at a meeting, a physical meeting actually earlier, so I wasn't able to hop on this, but
well, I think I can put something together that's better than this and actually provides a little more information.
well, I certainly hope so, Russell. I'm only kidding, really.
Okay.
But yeah, if you could just get us something like that, and what's existing now and proposed and all that, so that'd be great.
Okay.
That's all I got. Go Go ahead there.
I guess I have like a cluster of questions related to markings and maybe even mappings. So like right now when you Google it, basically the old part comes up. So as of July 1, will all the online stuff, including like the Syracuse website Creekwalk page, be updated to go from 2.5 miles to 4.7 miles with this new map instead of the old one?
Well, we're working on a new map right now with the graphic designer, so we'll have a new map ready. We're working with the mayor's office on the website upgrades. I know, Ruthnie, would you want to take that question, or it won't all be ready by July 1st?
Right.
Yeah, we're working on updates to the Onondaga Creekwalk page now. And Russ and I are putting together just some very simple brochure and marketing information so that it would drive people to the website. They can get more information on the Creekwalk. It's a temporary fix. A lot of information there was outdated.
I think even just making sure this yellow map that is currently on display still is on the website would be like, or is included in the trail would be a good start, because it's not there now.
Councilor,
No.
Councilor Rudd, this is Neil Burke. I wanted to just chime in. In addition to that, there are materials that are produced for us and for the region by the MPO, by SMTC. And so one of their most popular offerings is the bike map. And those are things that they give out, quite literally thousands of them over the course of a year. They're available via Centro and a lot of regional partners. So this will be on a new updated map that's coming this summer, which is just one piece in a regional network and a regional map. But again, this will be freshly printed for that.
Mm-hmm. And we do have a new map coming out, that'll include both phases 1 and 2, and that will be ready. It'll be better map than this one, kind of more wayfinding sort of map, which will eventually be used for some trail side maps. We do have some historical signs planned as well along the route, but that's more probably in the fall installation on the signage.
Along those lines, I think the yellow line that's on the trail does a pretty good job of communicating where you go most of the time. Mm-hmm. And maybe even that intersection with Bellevue and Midland could be improved by somehow having the line indicate more where the bike should cross instead of like leaving it open to this broad corner. But definitely the section when you get to Armory to essentially like where you pick up the creek at West Genesee Street, that's the hardest area to follow. I'm not sure I know you've done everything to like the state standard for these different roads and everything, but there's times where it's just sort of hard to see where the next yellow line is. So it almost requires some type of vertical communication of where the trail continues, and like that you could see, like a sign with a thing that shows go. Like those two areas are the easiest to get lost because I know where the trail is, so it's not a problem. But like, for instance, getting to where that the hotel that has the ramp with the parking garage,
Marriott,
getting from the like when you first enter where you go from West Street to there is not totally clear, and then the area where you like are crossing West Genesee Street, it's also like very unclear where you should cross West Genesee Street to somebody who doesn't know that it's basically at the old fire station.
I agree. I think downtown could use some additional, kind of signage and wayfinding.
Is there any additional money as we close out this project to kind of follow up with that, or is that something the city has to prioritize, or is that how do you think we should go about that process?
Mm-hmm. Mary or John, can signage be added on at this point?
You have to go back to the design, Ross. I mean, based on the design meets the current standards. We're now thinking there's an issue at some place. You need to go back and look at the design and see if that is a legitimate issue. I mean, there's still that, but that you need to bring that to your designer's attention if there's a concern, because it should have been addressed during the design phase.
Right. No, it would just be we're just looking at it. Again, I think we meet state standards. It's still a matter of adding additional call outs of the trail and signalization for the trail. But, okay.
I think I have two more. So this is not in the new part, but it's in the old part. But it's one hole when you're like experiencing it. But where the preserve is, kind of near the parks department, I think the trail, the yellow paint is pretty clearly on the wrong side of the street, because the whole thing is handicap accessible except for that point. Like the paint goes onto where the preserve is, but they don't have curb cuts to get up into their sidewalk. It's almost like they painted the thing over there so they would go closer to their restaurant. But like, I think the yellow paint should pretty much be on the opposite side, because then there's curb cuts and it's easier to follow the trail, if that makes any sense.
That was done by the owner of the preserve when they redid their sidewalks. That's not part of the Creekwalk. The Creekwalk is on the opposite side.
But the yellow paint is only on the preserve side. It's confusing. It's really confusing. Like, I think you have to take the yellow paint off of his and put it on the opposite side of the street, because you literally are like, where's the curb cut?
The yellow paint should not be on that side. That was done by the owner of the restaurant in the sidewalk. It's not part of the Creekwalk. Creekwalk is on the opposite side.
Right, but it doesn't have the yellow trail on the opposite side.
I'd have to look at the original plans to see if the yellow is supposed to be on that section of the trail. I know the sidewalk is pretty narrow there. I just have to check the original plans if the yellow center line was supposed to be on that sidewalk. If it was or is, then it would need to be refreshed so it's back on that section of sidewalk.
I think it's actually wide. The sidewalk is wider where there isn't the yellow line, and the side that has the preserve that has the yellow paint is the narrow part. It's weird. It just clearly it's on the wrong side of the street. Okay, then oh, my last. So I know we're redoing that park. Whatever, it's not a park, it's like where the creek meets the lake. We're supposed to have some sort of park being put there, right? Like a landing,
lake lounge. Yeah, lake lounge.
So can you describe the timing of that?
This is Mary Robinson again. I'm not sure if Owen Kearney is on the call. I think he is on the call. I know we put the project was put out to bid with the county, and the bids came in high, so they're looking to rebid the project, and I don't have a schedule for that. I don't know if Owen can respond to that question. If not, we can get back to you.
Okay, so in that vein, I'm not sure, like if that project were to begin immediately, then I would say the status quo feels okay. But if it was going to be like a year from now or 6 months from now, it used to be that you could go under the train tracks and actually get to the lake, and it was all kind of like rough when you get there, but it was still nice to get to the lake. And now the gates are closed under the train tracks, and you can't actually, you're like 20 feet from the lake but can't get there. So is there a way to open that gate up again so you can actually get to the edge? Because that I personally prefer that, but I'm not sure why we have to have the gate locked.
I believe the gate is there because there's an erosion problem at the lake, and so the gate has been installed for safety reasons.
All right, Councilor Green, I have a question, and maybe
Councilor, if you don't actually, Councilor Allen has a quick question, then we'll get to you, Councilor.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm not sure if this was talked about before I got on the call, but the Gotcha Bike program, are there any like bike paths that are going to be along this trail? Are they going to be added to this trail at all?
Yeah, Councilor Allen, that was asked briefly by Councilor Green in the beginning, but the short answer is yes. We knew that the creek would be extended, or the Creekwalk would be extended when we were working with Gotcha to develop and write the contract. They're eager to deploy more bikes, especially where we have dedicated bike facilities, because that is where they see some of the highest ridership. So as we move into year 2 of our contract, this area is primed for more bikes and new stations, new hubs. Yes.
Okay. And are you guys gonna, the little stop signs that you put on Midland, are you guys gonna put bigger ones out, or, cause that was a little confusing. They just appeared one day, so it was a little confusing. And you had some people stopping, and then people were literally going around them to pass them because they didn't realize that the stop sign was there. So are you guys gonna try to bring more awareness to the stop sign or make some changes to that?
Yeah, I think we can look at it, and a larger stop sign might be possible. There's one
Maybe a matter of just taking the little one out, because the little stop sign is confusing to if you're driving. It doesn't look like it's directed towards the vehicles, more like on the trail part. It's a little confusing. I noticed it twice with the cars, just because they're just so used to driving right through there, they didn't even pay any attention. They just was blowing right through the stop sign.
Right.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Juk?
Yes. So my question is regarding the operating hours. Are the operating hours going to be around the parks operating hours, or are they? What is that like? Is there a time that people shouldn't be using it? It stops, or is it just 24 hours thing?
Well, as far as I know, the trails, like the Creekwalk 1, is not closed in the evening. This would be similar status. And I believe our parks, though, do say closed at dusk for parks.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, the trail is not officially closed.
I do think, Russ, that should be something that should be considered, because if for security reasons, I think there should be hours where if the parks are closing, it should be closed as well until, and then, you know.
All right. I mean, there's lighting put in. I'm just saying we're meeting like state standards and federal standards for the trail. But that's kind of a bigger question, I think, here for maybe.
Counselor, I would actually argue the opposite. I think, if you look at this as partly a transportation thing, then, if there's people that are working downtown night shifts and then trying to commute back home by bike, I want to make sure they're able to get home by using this transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, I think this is like a council discussion and debate and decision. It's not just for like the engineering to say, yeah, we're going to close the trail down.
I think of it as a transit system, and it'd be like, are you allowed to hang out in the middle of the street? No, but are you allowed to ride your bike or drive home? Yeah.
Right.
And bottom line, they're gonna use it if it's open anyway, just like they go in the parks when they're closed at dusk.
Mm-hmm.
John from engineering, Councillor Green was correct. I think with our federal funding, this is a transportation network also. It's not just a recreational trail. Even though it goes through parks, it is for transportation, multi-use transportation for walkers and for cyclists, and as such, it should be available 24 hours a day. To start putting time restrictions on it, we need to go back and confirm with the state of New York if that would be against the funding policy.
Okay.
Councilor Juk, any other questions?
Yes. And I think if I heard Commissioner Robinson correctly earlier, he said that at some point there is going to be a person that is going to be responsible for keeping the maintenance of it, or a person that is designated as a person responsible for it. Is that person going to be a new hire, or is that going to be an add-on responsibility?
That's probably going to be a new hire that has been taken out of the budget due to budget constraints this year, but we're looking to get someone in there next year that's going to oversee the Creekwalk and basically take ownership of all phases and making sure that it's beautified to the fullest.
Okay.
And,
All right,
and there's
and
the
then that, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and there's the Empire State Trail too. I believe that's city maintenance responsibility. That's something else that this person could handle, I believe.
Yeah, that's something that we talked about as well, Russ.
Right. So the trails are expanding in Syracuse, and they need this person here.
Okay. Okay. Now, Councilor Green, I guess this question is for Rust or somebody else. Are there signs like dog leash, pick up to your dog, stuff like that around at all, or?
We did not install any new signs, dog signs, just what's in the parks. So that is something that could be added. That I think in the city we'd have to add in some on our own at this point.
Okay, I do think that since people are going to be using it as walking, I'm assuming that as people walk, they're going to bring their dogs with them.
Right. Right. Yep. No, that's the point. And then do we supply bags at certain locations too? That's
no, but at Onondaga Lake, when you ride on the county trail, they definitely have it like painted on the thing. It says like 4-foot leashes for dogs or something like that. Like I think that type of thing might be helpful.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if the dog's on like a 12-foot leash or one of those retractable things and it's out, like it can interfere with the bikes and everything else.
And all right, the council agreeing that should be it for me.
Thanks. I know the auditor had a question. Anita, if you want to jump in.
Thank you, Councilor. So listening to everybody, those of you who know me, I'm a big Yankee fan, and Yogi Berra says deja vu all over again. So back in, I think in 2011, we were having discussions when this first came up. I believe it was 2011. And I remember asking for a maintenance schedule or an outline of information of who was going to be responsible for what and where were the dollars going to come from. Andy Maxwell sent us a document. I think that was in October, if I remember correctly, of 2011, and again the end of May, first part of June of 2012. And and I have that document and I can share that with people. But what was missing from that was, and I haven't had a chance to look to see if I still have that, was the cost associated with the maintenance and care for all the things that you all have been talking about today. And I was aware that it was also the transportation, federal transportation. So, and that question has been answered. And I don't know if anybody from D.P.W has updated, or anybody from the administration or in engineering, if Kiv or Mary had done any updating from what Andy had provided. But I can share this with everyone, what I have. And then it could be added to, for clarity purposes, because some of the plowing or some of the snow removal wasn't all on the city responsibility, at least initially. Some was the downtown committee. Same way with the policing. Some of it was the downtown committee, police or security force, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't go into the details, but I have that. And if anybody else has something more current, maybe Corey, I don't know if you have anything that's available from Andy's files or information from the past, but it's helpful to have, and I think gives some guidance as to what is, what was then at least the plan of action for the things that have been raised today for the most part.
Yeah, thanks, Auditor Maroon. I don't have that, and I would welcome having that. I mean, we have our own chart that we put together in terms of, who's responsible for what. It'd be interesting to see if that lines up with what Andy provided. So I'd welcome a chance to look at that. And then, in terms of measuring costs, a lot of it is figuring out just the amount of time that we spend taking care of it. And I'm really looking forward to the time when we can have a more robust maintenance plan. And unfortunately, this might not be the year for that, but it won't hamper our enthusiasm to open the new phase. It's going to be exciting, but hopefully by next year we'll have a more robust resources dedicated to maintenance.
The irony thank you. And the irony of all this is that if you remember, all of us in 2010, 11, we were facing with fiscal crises as well. We're talking about a fiscal control board, et cetera, et cetera. And so when this project was introduced, many of us on the council were asking the question about, okay, this is a great idea. We're supportive. How are we going to pay for it? Long standing. So here we are.
Yeah.
Deja vu all over again.
Yeah. If only I hadn't been mired down in code enforcement, I could have been a part of those conversations. But
exactly.
But no, you're right. I mean, and I think it's, and the suggestion that we have somebody dedicated came from those staff that, Andy Jabowski and others from D.P.W. that have spent the last, 10 years maintaining it, and just knowing that, it deserves, everybody puts in, whether it's state, federal, city, we put a lot of resources, money, time, energy into creating this trail. It's a great asset for the city, and we need to provide it the maintenance that it deserves. And we need a more robust plan for maintenance to make sure that it's not going to do anybody any good if after a few years it's overgrown and things are broken and people don't feel safe and it's not taken care of. So, we're excited to open it this year, and we'll have a more secure maintenance plan next year.
I will distribute what I have, and then you can see if there's any additional information that might be available through the IT department from Andy's emails relating to the Creekwalk.
Can I ask a quick question, Councilor Green? I'm sorry, Nate, are you through?
I am, thank you.
When did the county turn over that property to us?
Well, it went through the common kind. I'm going to say about 2 years ago, probably. That included some on the other side at Bellevue and Midland. There's a little bit there, and then all the way down at Rich Street too. Originally, it had been the city's property, and then the county took it for their project. And
like the sewer treatment plant.
Right. About 30 years ago, I guess. Yeah. So it did go through the Common Council on approval for all that.
Okay.
I know we're gonna run out of time, but is there a plan for phase 3? And is there a way that we can, like you described, Russ, the trail stopping at whatever Colvin or something, but it goes on for a few more. It goes on essentially to Valentine, but with, I think it's like a similar quality because it's separate because the road's been closed, but it just doesn't have the markings and stuff. Is there a way we could somehow make it like instead of a 2.2 mile extension, a 2.7 or whatever the additional mileage is that brings you to Valentine and bring that up to a higher quality? It seems like it would require much less work than in the past, than the section that we just did.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a lot less work. There is a bike path there now. Neil, maybe you're a little more familiar with exactly what could be done to upgrade that section.
Yeah, so the existing closure that took place was along Onondaga Creek Boulevard, basically down to Newell. So as you use this trail heading south, when you reach the end of the trail, you're right. You essentially continue on a roadway that's been removed from service for walking and biking. If there are updates, if there are striping refreshes and things like that, or maybe it's just continuing the signage typology and making sure there's some consistency in the materials, we can absolutely look at that, especially if it's some of the smaller items. Obviously, we're not going to be recreating the entire trail or adding, pull-off areas anytime soon, things like that, or new parking areas. But the simple stuff, yeah, we'll take a look.
So is it because we don't have all those other standards that we can't describe it as part of the extended area now?
Well, I'm not sure on the specifics, but we've removed that roadway from traffic, so it is a trail. It's open to all. We haven't dedicated it as such, but there is striping for bike lanes and a ped lane. So essentially, it's a continuation, and it's very likely that a phase 3 would incorporate that as part of it. May need slight updates, but there's no reason we can't just say this is part of the Creekwalk right now, at least for what we're delivering to the public. In terms of funding and maintenance and everything else, yes, there's a distinction.
And then just there, I saw in the specs there were 2 charging stations for wheelchairs. Where exactly are they?
Well, there will be one. That's separate funding from a different state account, DEC account. It will be downtown at on the other side of the most, kind of at the end of the Creekwalk Trail right now. I would think that'll be in again by fall. We've got materials coming in for that, and once D.P.W. Skilled Trades has the time to do it, they'll be getting that in.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just funded for one unit at this point.
Any other questions?
Councilor Green, if I could just interject real quick. Just the police department has been apprised of this, the Creekwalk and what's happening and when we're going to officially open it and all that. I imagine, right, Corey?
They are aware of it, yes.
Okay, that means they've been sat down and we went over the map and all that stuff with them, and they're
Yeah,
like,
I know that Russ was in touch with them, during the community engagement phase. Obviously, as we get closer to the date, though, we'll revisit it with them, but they're aware of it.
And down the road, maybe thinking of utilizing the Parks Department, the back parking lot in the Parks Department for maybe some public facilities, or maybe even if we used to even have a dispatcher over there, who used to be there all the time. I don't think that happens anymore, but that might be a good idea down the road when we get, become more progressive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Are there any signs on there for like no driving on the Creekwalk? The other day I saw a car parked on the actual path.
Down on West Street?
It was actually so right before you get to South Ave, it was on that part, like right inside of like Centennial Gardens by the apartments. It was a car parked on the actual path.
Okay, we've got it. I mean, some places there are signs. I don't think there's a sign there. I'm not sure how you would get on it there, but I think you'd have.
Is there a fine, and how much is it?
Right, I was gonna say that, Councilor Rudd.
Like I say, we're putting bollards up in some key areas, but there might be some other areas where we need to put a gate up or a bollard. And that sort
Somebody
of thing.
could just find out what the fine is. That would help.
Yeah, and then actually post that down there, because maybe if they see that, then they won't go on there. But I noticed it over the weekend when I was driving down South Ave. I just like glanced over and you could see them. They were just parked on the path.
All right, if there's no other questions, I guess we'll sign off, but I really appreciate the update. It's an exciting new development, so I appreciate everyone's work on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Yep, and
Thanks, everybody.
we'll be working on these questions.